I never expected my soldier dad to walk through the door on my birthday. His tears said it all. The house was filled with balloons, bright and colorful, but their cheer felt like a cruel joke. I stood, frozen, in the middle of my party with laughter echoing around me, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. The door creaked slowly open. That sound stretched out, heavy with anticipation. He appeared, uniform crisp but familiar, like an old ghost that suddenly decided to haunt me on a day meant for joy. Time stopped. My friends froze, laughter dying in their throats. Eyes widened in disbelief, waiting for clarity, for the punchline. His face was a canvas of agony blended with relief, worn lines deepening around his dark eyes. It was strange, so very strange to see him, the hero from photos that now felt distant and surreal. What are you doing here? The words left my mouth soft and shaky, like they were emerging from someone else's lips. I stepped forward, but my legs felt heavy, as though they were sinking into the earth. I'd always imagined this momentous surprise, a celebration, but not like this. Not with shadows lurking behind his brilliant smile. His breath hitched, and I could see the tremors in his hands. They fluttered like a bird caught in a storm. His voice straggled out, lost in the cacophony of the dimmed lights and muffled whispers of my guests. The air thickened with silence, a heavy fog where laughter once roamed. I couldn't breathe. His tears streamed down his cheeks, carving lines of pain through the dust of his stoic resolve. I tasted salt on my lips, the sting of realization sinking in deeper than ever. He wasn't just home, he was haunted. Memories of nights spent worrying, praying he'd return, swirled around us. Each absent moment pressed on my chest, tight and suffocating. I missed the warmth of his hugs, the stories he'd share. Now, he just stood there, trembling on the threshold, caught between his past and whatever horrors awaited him. Why? I whispered. It was all I could manage. A question echoing through the thick fog of confusion and fear. My mom's eyes darted toward us, searching for answers in the battleground of emotions, but nothing made sense. The vibrant birthday cake sat untouched on the table, a stark reminder of the light and joy that had vanished. The room swirled with hushed conversations, voices blending into a backdrop of chaos. Is he okay? Someone murmured. Was he hurt? Another chimed in, eyebrows knitted in concern. I felt every gaze, every thought lingers, and I wanted to scream for answers. If he was here in person, then what demons had followed him back? Dad took a shaky step inside. The world shifted. Reality twisted. I realized I wasn't just welcoming him. I was inviting something far darker. My heart raced. What had he seen? What could disrupt his spirit so completely? I needed to know. But part of me trembled, wondering if some truths were better left hidden. As we stood there, a parent-teacher meeting of emotions, hope flickered like the dim light above us, battling against the looming shadows of dread. I felt the tension deepen with every breath I took, each second stretching into eternity. My mind screamed for clarity, for answers. I wanted to pull him close, to bury myself in the scent of home and safety, but fear spilled through my fingers like sand. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification? A lifeline? Or another reminder that everything I thought I knew was slipping away? I glanced back at him. His dark eyes met mine, hurt but sparking with an urgency I couldn't understand. Please, he said, barely above a whisper. What was he asking of me? Was he pleading for forgiveness, for understanding, or for something more sinister? I had to know what lay beneath that desperate gaze, but with every question, I felt the walls closing in. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The minutes dragged on like heavy fog enveloping the room, the cacophony of my friends' whispers transforming into an indistinguishable murmur that faded into the background. All that mattered was the space between my father and me, filled with an oppressive weight that threatened to crush any remnants of joy celebrating my birthday. He took another tentative step forward, boots scraping softly against the wooden floor, as if testing the ground beneath him, unsure of what would happen next. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely escaping the grip of uncertainty. The question hung in the air like a lingering cloud, cloaked in unspoken fear. I nodded instinctively, unsure of whether I was summoning the courage to face him or fleeing from the suffocating chaos of the gathering. "Excuse me," I said, my voice trembling, pooling the attention of my guests like water trapped in a glass, precariously close to spilling over. A few faces turned with knowing gazes, others with mild concern. I could feel their unasked questions circling us like vultures peering down on a wounded creature. Dad's eyes flickered, an eagle caught in a downpour of emotion. He motioned for me to follow him, leading us away from the prying eyes into the sanctuary of the hallway. The oppressive atmosphere loosened slightly as we stepped away from the party, but the urgency in his demeanor only intensified the knots within my stomach. Once we reached a small alcove, dimly lit by the soft glow of a wall-mounted lamp, he turned to me, his entire frame trembling with the weight of his emotions. "You deserve an explanation, and I'm why now?" I interrupted, desperation breaching the nerves that had caused my voice to quake. "Why did you come home now, Dad? On my birthday?" The hurt bubbled inside me, each word another crack in the dam of confusion and trepidation. His eyebrows knitted together, guilt flashing across his face. "I wanted to be there for you. I thought I could." He paused, grief etched in the lines of his features. "I thought I could celebrate what you've achieved, see you grow. It's what keeps me going out there, but you're not okay." The truth spilled out, raw and jagged. "You're home, but I can see it fear, the darkness. It's like you brought the war with you." His gaze dropped to the floor, shadowed by memories better left unspoken. "It's complicated, sweetheart." He raised his head once more, vulnerability merging with clarity. "There are things you'll never tell me," I finished for him, bitterness creeping into my tone. The truth hung between us, palpable and agonizing. I wanted to reach out, to mend this emotional rift that had opened up wider than the Grand Canyon, but how could I begin to bridge the chasm created by silence and distance? "Please," he said, desperation cutting into his voice. "There are battles I'm still fighting, and I don't want you to bear the weight of them." And yet, here we were, my heart racing as I wrestled with the reality of his words. I felt small and hollowed by the weight of his experiences, but even angrier that those experiences had robbed us both. "How can I not bear it when you're here, but not really here?" The tears threatened to flow, a dam I fought to keep intact, but my resolve shimmered like a thin veil. For a moment, we stood together in the silence, a father and daughter caught in the tumultuous ocean of uncertainty, fear, and love. And then, almost like an afterthought, he reached for me, enveloping me in a hesitant embrace. The warmth from his familiar form wrapped around me, yet it felt foreign, tainted with the reality of his struggles. I wanted to relax, to melt into him, but a fierce tension held me apart. "That I missed you, Dad," I whispered, the cracks in my heart open and gaping. "I've missed you too, more than you know." His voice broke, a tremor that echoed in the hollowness of the space between us, and then just as I thought we were stepping toward a moment of healing, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket again. It was insistent, almost demanding my attention, pulling me back to the surface when I felt submerged in our moment. With trembling hands, I swiped open the notification, heart racing with unspoken dread. There it was, a message from an unknown number. "I know what happened," it read. "Your father isn't who you think he is." My breath caught, laughter from the party drifting from far away, ignorant of the storm brewing just inside my chest. My father pulled back, searching my eyes, but the terror that swirled in my stomach eclipsed everything. "What is it?" he asked, sensing the shift in my demeanor. The fragility we'd built during our short conversation began to fracture, splintering under the weight of that revelation. The reality of our reunion unraveling with every beat of my heart. Dad, I struggled to grasp the words dancing on the precipice of my lips, but the truth felt chained, locked within my fear. I had no idea what lay ahead, but with that message whispering ominously in my pocket, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The music from the party faded into a distant hum as my world began to spin. My father's expression morphed from concern to dread in the blink of an eye, and in that moment, the sanctuary we'd carved out of the chaos shattered, replaced instead by an impending feeling of betrayal. What is it? He pressed again, but this time his voice trembled as if it were the last tether anchoring him to sanity. I could see the fear rising in him, an echo of my own, as we both confronted the monster lurking just feet away in my pocket. That I opened my mouth but no sound came out. The air in the alcove felt thick, weighty with our unspoken fears. The moment stretched like an elastic band, ready to snap, and all I could do was stare at my father with eyes wide, searching for some sign that the storm brewing inside me had not yet reached him. The evening light filtering through the narrow window painted him half in shadow, and for a second, he looked so small, so vulnerable. It was a stark contrast to the soldier I had been waiting to embrace, one who I believed could shield me from the world. Why didn't you tell me? I finally managed, my voice a fragile thread wrapped in anger and confusion. That I don't know what you're talking about. But even as he spoke, his resolve wavered. I could see the cracks forming, like a vase delicately painted yet slowly spider-webbed with fractures. I pulled out my phone, battling the shaking in my hands, and held it in front of him, the screen glowing ominously with that simple, terrifying message. "This just came in," I whispered, the air heavy with uncertainty. He took a step back, and the haunted look in his eyes deepened. For what felt like eternity, he stood there, lips pressed tightly together. "Who is it?" His voice cracked, fear lacing each syllable. "What do they know?" "I don't know." I spat out, the tears I'd been holding back tearing free, cascading down my cheeks. The image of my father crumbling before Maya's strength stripped away was more than I could bear. "You've kept so many secrets, and now I'm getting messages from strangers online, Dad. What am I supposed to think? I never wanted this for you," he said slowly, the weight of his own silence sinking in as he avoided my gaze. "Know this, whatever you think you're hearing, it's not true. I'm still your father." My heart twisted painfully, making it hard to breathe. "But what if you're not? What does that mean?" The words came out in a whisper, heavy with a fear I had been too proud to admit. "What if everything I thought I knew about you was an illusion? Please just listen to me." He grasped my arms, raw desperation in his eyes. "I came back to protect you, to keep you safe from things you can't understand. You deserve peace." My thoughts spiraled as I shook my head, barely able to process his plea. "But how can I have peace when I know you're hiding something? You're the one who taught me that facing the truth is crucial." His figure wavered, the intensity of the moment stretching taut, until it loosened with an unexpected creak. A soft voice drifted through the hallway, a happy birthday tune seamlessly weaving back into the world beyond, and I could almost see the innocence of my earlier celebrations, a mere heartbeat away. Suddenly, as if jolted by the music's familiarity, my phone buzzed again. The screen lit up with another notification, and this message carried a chilling finality: "The truth is closer than you think." With my heart racing, I looked up at my father, feeling life pulse in the stillness around us. Something dark shifted in his gaze as he let go of my arms, almost like a wound suddenly exposed, sparking a deep-rooted sense of panic. "Stay away from this," he warned, his voice dropping to a sharp whisper, each word laden with urgency and unspoken threats. "I'm not going to lose you over this. You cannot, you must not get involved." The world around me shrank. A sense of foreboding wrapped itself around me as I absorbed the finality in his words. "What do you mean? Loss? What's out there, Dad?" His silence screamed louder than any answer I sought, and with every unanswered question, the chasm widened between us. I scanned his face for a flicker of understanding, a glimmer that whispered reassurance, but instead, I found a man caught between what he had done and the love he still harbored for me. Before I could voice my fears, a sharp knock echoed down the hall, its resonance disrupting our fragile moment, yanking us back to the reality I desperately wished to escape. The door to the room slammed open, laughter and light spilling into the alcove like water bursting through a dam, washing over our raw truths. My friends' faces glowed with anticipation. They were summoning me back to the light, a stark contrast to the shadow looming between my father and me. Another snatch at normalcy when everything felt poised to break apart. Hey, we're ready to play games. A friend's voice rang with enthusiasm, slicing through the tension like a knife. I turned back to my father, the moment suspended between us shifting into something unrecognizable. His eyes mirrored my fragility, though understanding that our confrontation had birthed something neither of us could run away from. The innocence of my birthday celebration began to blur, a kaleidoscope of secrets swirling just beneath the surface that I forced a smile, the muscles in my face heavy with unresolved tension, then stepped back toward the laughter, forging my way into a reality I was desperate to reclaim. But the truth clung to me, a whisper on my shoulder that echoed with every beat of my racing heart. As I crossed back into the party, my eyes met my father's one last time, the gulf between us filled with heavy, suffocating unsaid words and fear. No longer the hero I had imagined, he had become a puzzle shrouded in fog, leaving me with more questions than I could contain, and as the festivities resumed, the laughter became a haunting reminder that beneath the surface of celebration, the deepest abyss was still waiting to be confronted. The party buzzed around me, a vibrant haze of laughter and chaos that felt oddly foreign in the wake of the suffocating conversation I had just endured. Everywhere I looked, friends' faces sparkled with joy, their mirth contrasting sharply with the heavy weight in my chest. I joined them, slipping into a role that felt increasingly artificial, my smile mere paint over a canvas marred with questions I wasn't sure I wanted to confront. Let's play charades. Someone suggested, hooting with enthusiasm, and the crowd rallied around, the game launching amid an explosion of laughter. I tried to immerse myself in the fun, but each shout of delight was a reminder of the darkness lurking just outside. Memories of my father's frightened gaze haunted me, wrapping around my heart like a vine constricting any spark of joy. In the midst of it all, my best friend, Jenny, snagged my arm, dragging me into the game. "Come on, lighten up. We need your best moves," she teased, her eyes dancing with mischief. I forced my laughter, mirroring her energy, but beneath the surface, anxiety bubbled over like volcanic ash smothering everything around it. As I acted out a ridiculous scene, gesturing wildly and mimicking a character from one of our favorite movies, the laughter took on a muffled quality. Each chuckle, each shout of encouragement felt further away, almost like I was watching myself from a distance. I could feel my father's warning echoing in my mind, "Stay away from this." But from what? And why did that warning throb in sync with my heart? Sometime later, the game came to an end, and I excused myself to the kitchen, needing a moment of reprieve from the vibrant chaos. The stark fluorescent lights felt unkind on my face, burning hot against the chill that had settled deep within me. I grabbed a glass of water, my hands trembling as I poured, the liquid sloshing in jerky movements like my racing thoughts. As I leaned against the counter, the past few moments replayed in my head like a broken record. My father's admission of secrets, the dark force lurking just beyond our words, and the message I had received, it all coalesced into a knot of emotions that I couldn't untangle. Did he truly believe I could remain untouched? Suddenly, a light knock on the kitchen door startled me. It swung open, and my father stepped in, his brow slightly furrowed, as if he was unrelenting in his thoughts. For a quick moment, our eyes locked, and I could see a flash of his vulnerability, the burden of untold truths weighing heavily on his shoulders. I could almost hear the unspoken promise in his eyes, to protect, to shield me from whatever darkness he wasn't ready to reveal. "Hey," he said, voice strained but gentle, as if each word was a bridge he was trying to construct despite the vast chasm between us. "How are you holding up?" I shrugged, my throat constricted. "I'm fine," I managed to say, but it came out a whisper, barely convincing even to myself. I could feel the honesty slipping away, tangled up in the fabric of our shared silence. "I'm sorry about before," he started, stepping closer. I didn't mean to frighten you. I just know, Dad, it's not just that. My voice trembled, the weight of dread pressing against my chest. You're keeping something from me. Aren't you? He paused, the air growing heavy between us yet again, thick with unsaid promises and muffled fears. There are things in my past, things I never thought would spill into your life. For a heartbeat, I wanted to reach out, to ease the tension twisting through our connection. Instead, I felt the distance widen as understanding slipped just out of reach. But I need to know, I whispered, a plea directed at his guarded heart. I feel so lost that he took a deep breath, and for a moment, I thought he might share everything. But instead, a sudden crash echoed from the living room, followed by shouts from our friends. I turned, the sound jolting me back into the reality of the moment. My heart raced. Something was wrong. Stay here, he commanded, but even as he stepped toward the door, I could feel a tug of defiance in my chest. My loyalty to my friends wrestled against my fear for what would happen if I remained behind. Ignoring his caution, I rushed past him into the living room, a cloud of excitement mingling with an undercurrent of concern. As I broke into the room, time seemed to slow, everyone's eyes were wide, scanning the space for answers. Yet it was my gaze that froze on the corner of the room, where my phone was lighting up again on the table, its glowing screen betraying me. I pushed through the crowd, and the room dissolved into chaos. But it was all background noise as I reached for my phone, heart thumping violently against my ribcage. The notification read, "You can't escape the truth forever. Tonight, it will find you." I felt my breath catch, a fresh wave of dread crashing over me as I lifted my gaze. My father stood at the edge of the crowd, still, his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that felt both protective and resigned. In that moment, the walls we had built, the secrets he held, and the truth that whispered beneath every laugh tore into jagged fragments. Before I could process the implications of the message, the front door swung open with a force that sent the laughter into a hushed silence. Instinctively, we all turned, and my heart dropped when a new figure emerged from the shadows, someone familiar yet unsettling. "A surprise for the birthday girl," the stranger announced, his grin sinister, eyes glinting with an unsettling knowledge. The air vibrated with tension as I stood frozen, knowing that whatever came next, I was no longer in control. The truth was crashing in, and I was poised on the precipice of an unimaginable revelation. My mind raced as the stranger stepped into the light, the unfamiliar weight of recognition settling heavily upon me. His presence sent shivers down my spine, and for a heartbeat, the cacophony of the party faded into a deafening silence. The pulsating energy of laughter transformed into a terrifying uncertainty that hung like storm clouds overhead, darkening everything it touched. "Who are you?" I managed, the words tumbling out against the oppressive silence, edged with confusion and fear. My friends around me were frozen, their expressions shifting from joy to worry as they processed the intrusion, still caught in the surreal atmosphere of the party that had moments ago been merely chaotic. The stranger took a step closer, and I could feel my father tense beside me, a subtle shift in his posture that hinted at his growing apprehension. "Just a friend from your father's past," he replied, his voice oozing with a charisma that felt hollow, sinister. "I've come to deliver a message, one that's too important to ignore." My heart raced. The messages flooding my phone, the shadowy truths my father clung to, all of it wrapped around this unknown figure like a noose tightening with every breath. The room pulsed with the energy of panic, my friends scrambling to make sense of what had just disrupted our celebration. In that whirlwind, I felt utterly alone, thrust deeper into a chasm of uncertainty. "Enough games," my dad said, stepping protectively in front of me, his eyes narrowing into slits that cut through the stranger's bravado. "You have no place here. Whatever you think you know, it stops now." The stranger chuckled, a low, eerie sound. "Oh, but isn't it too late for that? Secrets don't simply stay buried, not when it all comes crashing back like a wave against the shore." A murmur fluttered through my friends, a collective gasp weaving its way through the crowd, and I felt fear creeping up my spine like an unwelcome hand, clenching my throat tight. "Dad, what does he mean?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my attempts to sound brave. "Just stay back," he urged, glancing at me with a pained expression, one I hadn't seen before. "I'll handle this. No." I shouted, desperation seeping into my words. "You're not telling me everything. I deserve to know." The onus of my father's silence weighed heavily, and for a brief moment, as his eyes met mine, I thought I glimpsed a flicker of regret hidden behind the weariness etched across his face. But with the stranger lingering close enough to taste the tension, my father turned slightly away, unwilling to allow vulnerability to pierce the protective facade he had constructed around us. The stranger took another step forward, smirking. "Even now, he's keeping you in the dark. What a shame. You think you're safe behind your father's walls, but that curtain will lift whether you like it or not. Stop talking in riddles." I demanded, feeling a pulsing anger rise to the forefront of my emotions, battling against the fear that threatened to swallow me whole. "What do you want? What do you know? Your father's past," he said, his voice sliding around the room like an unwanted mist. "Didn't you ever wonder why he's always so afraid? Why he spends every waking hour trying to shield you from something he can't quite face? Enough." My father shouted, his voice echoing against the walls with a desperation that startled everyone. "Leave now, while you still can." But the stranger remained, a specter haunting my party, drawing laughter and warmth into shadows. Then he leaned in closer, his voice lowering, almost conspiratorial. "You're about to discover just how far-reaching his fears extend. Believe me, the truth won't let you go so easily, Dad, please," I begged, turning to him, my heart racing against the insight that threatened to burst free like a dam. "Just tell me. I need to understand. If there's something in your past that affects me." Before I could finish, the stranger took a step back, a smile twisting his lips. "Enjoy your celebration while it lasts." He turned, glancing back toward us with an unsettling glimmer in his eyes, as if the warning he offered was a cruel promise etched in fate. As he strode out the door, laughter still echoed faintly from the backyard, but now it felt strained, tainted by the foreboding left in his wake. My heart pounded against my ribcage like a caged bird. I turned to find my father's face pale, his voice trembling as he spoke. I thought I managed to keep it hidden. But his eyes revealed a new depth of sorrow, layers of guilt that threatened to pull us into a darkness I couldn't yet fathom. "I don't want to be left in the dark anymore," I whispered, my own resolve unraveling with each passing second, and just as we stood there, suspended in that fragile moment, a new sound broke through the tension, the unmistakable ping of another message arriving on my phone. As I glanced down, the world tilted beneath me. "You think you can trust him? The truth is closer than you realize. Don't be fooled by the words of a soldier." Panic clawed at the edges of my consciousness, and I stiffened, knowing at that moment, the truth I desperately sought was now a crushing weight looming just beyond reach, preparing to unleash whatever storm had been brewing. My father stepped toward me, tears glistening in his eyes, but before he could speak, we found ourselves encased in a silence heavier than any words could lift. The world felt too big, too dark, and as I clenched my phone tightly in my hand, I understood that whatever obstacles lay ahead would demand everything from both of us, and there would be no turning back from the path we were now on. I stood frozen in the center of the living room, the laughter of my friends fading into fragments of a nightmare. The weight of my father's undisclosed past hung like a storm cloud, threatening to burst at any moment. My heart raced as I glanced at my phone, the ominous message burning against my palm. The room around me swirled with muted colors, every heartbeat pulsed with urgent questions I didn't dare voice. My father's anguish cut through the silence like a knife, deepening the crack in the fragile facade we'd built together. Just below the surface of his stoicism, I could see waves of guilt and despair threatening to drown him. "I should have been stronger," he murmured, barely louder than a whisper but laden with meaning that wrapped around my throat like a vine, squeezing. "Dad, please, what did he mean?" I said, desperate for him to dispel the shadows creeping over us. I needed answers, but my father remained silent, his gaze lost in a distant memory that seemed to unfold beneath the weight of the moment. As if sensing the tension, one of my friends, Emily, stepped forward, the curiosity in her eyes giving way to concern. "We could, go outside for a bit," she suggested, her voice a soft balm in the growing storm. Jeers from the backyard dampened, the laughter fading into an underlying note of apprehension as people sensed the emotional tempest brewing. "No," I said. "I need to stay with him." "You deserve the truth," Emily replied, glancing at my father and then back at me. "Whatever it is, well, I'll be here for you." "We wouldn't leave." A small flicker of gratitude ignited in my chest at her words, but the acknowledgement was quickly eclipsed by the relentless tide of dread that coursed through me. My father's eyes were glazed, reflecting visions from a time long past, a sorrow writing itself onto his face as he tried to reconcile the joy of today's celebration with the darkness now creeping in. He began, swallowing hard, "just give me a moment." He stepped away, moving toward the door that led to the patio, his back turned to me as he remained tethered to an emotional battlefield he couldn't seem to escape. With each second that passed, it felt like a part of me was fracturing. My need for clarity pitted against the anguish so palpable in his silence. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the widening chasm between us, but my own fear kept me anchored in place. Then it happened. The door creaked open and sudden murmurs from the backyard broke into my consciousness like shards of glass. "It's fine." I heard the unmistakable voice of one of my friends, Eric, trying to buoy the group's unease with laughter. "Just a little drama, nothing to worry about," but with each laugh, I felt the weight of my father's burdens bear down heavier. I have always known the gentle strength that turned him into my hero, but that very strength felt unmoored now, lost at sea among the dark tides of uncertainty. In a moment fueled by both fear and desperation, I stepped outside, the cool night air wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. "Please, can we just sit down and talk?" I urged him, emotion lacing my voice as I pulled him back from the precipice of his thoughts. That he hesitated, a battle raging deep within his eyes. Then, surprisingly, he nodded, his shoulders slumping in defeat. We sat together, a world of noise and laughter mere echoes as the shadows of the past encroached on our present. "I didn't want you to have to deal with this," he finally began, his voice a tremor against the backdrop of the burgeoning night. "I thought if I could keep it hidden, you'd be safe." "Safe from what?" I pressed, not ready to let him slip away again. "This isn't just about you anymore. What happens to you affects me too." He turned his gaze to the starry sky, his expression laden with anguish. "I was once part of something terrible. A soldier, yes, but I also made choices that put you in danger without you even knowing that." My heart sank. The cryptic hints that had riddled my life now felt like daggers, piercing through the fog. "What kind of danger?" I whispered, as fear clawed at the edges of my sanity. In that moment, a sudden crash echoed from behind the deep shadows of the party. Laughter erupted into chaos. A chilling scream cut through the air and the world sharpened into clarity. My friends stumbled from the backyard, their faces contorted with shock. "We need to get out of here," one of them shouted, eyes wide and fearful. A figure emerged behind them, a dark silhouette that seemed to cast a pall over everything. "Where do you think you're going?" The stranger's voice rang out, a twisted smile framing his face, reeking with the confidence of someone who had returned from a ghostly past that had never truly faded. "Dad!" I yelled, but the words felt heavy on my tongue as I turned to see the realization wash over my father's face. The past had come back to claim him, and the intensity of the moment pulled us into a whirlpool of chaos from which there would be no easy escape. The sound of my friend's panic faded, swallowed by the rising tide of dread. As the stranger stepped closer, I could feel my father's body tense next to me. He knew the stakes all too well, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope, one that resided in the strength of my friend standing beside us, ready to face whatever darkness lingered just ahead. "Stay behind me," my father urged, and we braced ourselves against the storm that had just begun to break. The chaos erupted like a wildfire, consuming everything in its path. My heart raced as the silhouette of the stranger became clearer, revealing a face etched with familiar darkness. It was as if a ghost had stepped from the shadows of my father's past, a figure woven into the very fabric of his regrets. The stranger's eyes locked onto my father's, and in that moment, the air around us grew thick with unspoken fears. "Do you really think you could keep it from her forever?" he taunted, the smirk on his face like a viper poised to strike. The truth always finds a way back, doesn't it? My father's jaw clenched, and I could see the tremor in his hands, as if the past was rising to choke him. It was almost unbearable to watch, to feel the suffocating weight of his truth push against the fragile barrier he had built around himself. Yet amid the panic that surged, I also felt an anger sparking within me, a desperate need to protect my father from the very horrors he had shielded me from my whole life. "Who are you?" I shouted over the growing din, swallowing hard against the fear that threatened to swallow me whole. The laughter of my friends had abandoned us, replaced by fear-soaked gasps, but a few stood strong: Emily, Eric, and others, their faces painted with defiance. "Someone from your father's past," the stranger replied, stepping closer, his tone dripping with malice. "And believe me, you don't want to learn the details of his so-called heroism. It comes with a bloody history." "Stop it!" I shouted, hating how small and weak I felt. I turned to my father, holding his gaze. "You have to tell me the truth, Dad. Whatever you're hiding, we can face it together." For a fleeting moment, his eyes softened, the weight of my words reaching him even amid the storm. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but the moment was cut short. The stranger laughed, a harsh, chilling sound that reverberated through the growing darkness. "Together? You will need more than that," he bellowed, his voice filled with venom. "You think you understand what it means to face the demons lurking in your family's past? Your father has kept you in the dark for your own good, but the truth has a way of clawing free, fueled by layered emotions: fear, hurt, confusion." I stepped toward the looming figure, my heart pounding with an audacious mix of fury and hope. "Whatever it is, whatever you think you know, well, face it. You won't intimidate us. Not now. Not ever." In that moment, I felt hands gripping my shoulders, Emily and Eric, grounding me. Their presence ignited a warmth in me, banishing the cold dread washing over my skin. "We've got your back," Emily whispered, and I held on to those words, drawing strength from them. The stranger's amusement turned to irritation as he assessed this unexpected show of camaraderie. "How quaint. But know this: what I bring is not just a fight. It's a reckoning, and it's time your father faced his." In that instant, my father seemed to become a shadow of his former self, slipping deeper under the weight of the revelations that clawed at his composure. "No," he muttered, shaking his head violently. "I've worked so hard to leave that behind." "Then I guess the past didn't get the memo," the stranger sneered, taking another step forward, his figure eclipsing the warm glow of the party lights behind us. "You'll have to face the consequences of your choices. You created monsters, and now they are at your door." As the night air crackled with tension, my heart threatened to leap from my chest. What monstrous truths lay hidden within my father's past? The answers lingered just within reach, tantalizing yet horrifying. "Dad, please," I pleaded, trailing off as uncertainty hung heavy. I was terrified of what could unfold, but I refused to let go of hope. "You can't let him control your past or our future." I caught a breath, ready to step between my father and this specter of dread when, without warning, the stranger lunged. "Your past is coming for you, soldier," he shouted, reaching for my father, who instinctively moved to shield me. I felt my body act before my mind caught up. I surged forward, prepared to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf us. "Stay away from him," I screamed, my heart hammering against my ribs in defiance, but as my desperation flared, time seemed to pause, my world narrowed. The truth pulsed in the air, a confluence of fear, love, and sacrifice. I heard my father's sharp intake of breath and caught the hint of something more profound weaving through his features, a secret yearning to finally uncover the shackles binding him. Just then, a loud crash rippled through the night, a shattering sound that shook the very foundations of our reality. A distant siren wailed in the background, but something in us all knew there would be no more hiding. The darkness was here. And it was hungry. The sirens sang a haunting lullaby, intertwining with the broken shards of glass that lay glimmering on the ground like jagged stars. As the echo of that crash faded, I felt the air shift around us, charged with 1,000 unsaid words, as if even the night itself was holding its breath. My father's face, usually a fortress of strength, crumbled, revealing the soft, vulnerable core I had never seen before. Yet, despite the rising tide of emotions, the stranger's smirk widened, relishing the chaos. "The curtain rises, and the play begins," he mocked, as if the unleashed truth was a long-awaited spectacle. "No." My voice quivered, but I steadied myself, drawing from the warmth of my friends standing resolutely by my side. They hadn't flinched in the face of impending terror, their unwavering loyalty replacing any sense of fear with fierce determination. "Dad, please." I took a step closer, however trepidatious, my eyes desperate as they sought his. "Tell me what's going on. We can take back the control, we can face it together," but the past echoed ominously in his gaze. It told stories I couldn't comprehend, secrets that twisted like dark vines around his heart. He looked at me as if I were the light in an unending night. "You don't know what you're asking for, sweetheart," he whispered hoarsely, the shadows of regret weaving through his words. "What don't I know?" I pressed, feeling the urgency build within me. "What can be worse than this?" I gestured at the stranger, who remained an unwavering shadow, seemingly invigorated by my plea. "It isn't just him," my father murmured, shaking his head. "There is so much I should have protected you from." Suddenly, my father's moment of weakness shifted to resolve. He straightened, signaling a change in the atmosphere. "This is my battle," he declared, his voice gaining strength, though thunderclouds still loomed over him. "And I won't allow it to destroy what we have. Not now. Not ever." The stranger stepped forward, puffing himself up as if to poison the very air with his presence. "You can't shield your daughter forever, old soldier, the past knows every entrance to your heart." And with that chilling proclamation, something inside me cracked wide open. The strong facade I had worn was slipping, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. "This isn't just your past, Dad," I shouted, my voice trembling with emotion. "It's mine too. Don't you see? I deserve the truth, even if it hurts. We deserve it." In that moment, the friends who had been anchored beside me stepped forward, nodding in solidarity. "We're all here, together," Emily reminded, her voice a soft comfort amid the growing tempest. A flicker of hope ignited in my father's eyes, briefly illuminating the darkness around us. But before any words could escape his lips, the stranger let out a guttural laugh. "You think this little display is enough? You think you can face the horrors lurking in the dark? There's a reason soldiers have to carry their burdens alone." Just then, the world shifted again, and the shadows behind the stranger coalesced into a darker shape, another silhouette, stepping into the pool of flickering light cast by the party's fading remnants. It was a figure cloaked in a heavy overcoat, face obscured, yet their presence sent a ripple of recognition through my father. "James," the newcomer said, voice low and steady. Every syllable wrapped around my heart like a vice. "It's time you choose where your loyalties lie." My father's face paled, and the color drained from my cheeks. His voice faltered, betraying years of buried fear. The stranger, whom I now saw in a new light, stood grinning at my father's paralyzing recognition, satisfaction dancing in his eyes. Questions whipped through my mind like a storm, a whirling mass of confusion, fear, and something less definable, danger. "Who is this?" I demanded, desperation chipping away at the edges of my toughness. "Dad, please, we can't keep this hidden anymore. Please, let me explain. I never wanted you to find out this way." My father stepped forward, desperation etched across his face, yet the weight of his secrets knotted the air between us. With that, everything shifted. It felt like the universe snapped its fingers, pushing the world to a precipice. The newfound figure caught my father in its gaze, a bond of old pain drawing taut between them. In that moment of stillness, I realized my life was about to fracture, teetering on the edge of a revelation that could shatter everything I thought I knew. The darkness was closing in, hungry for the stories buried beneath years of silence. As my heart raced in anticipation of what lay hidden beyond this moment, I could sense the weight of history pressing down, a reckoning that would come at a terrible price. And as I stood on the threshold of the abyss, I couldn't help but wonder, would the truth keep us together, or would it tear us apart forever? The tremors of uncertainty passed through me as I stood there, caught between the two men facing off against one another. The air felt electric, charged with secrets waiting to erupt. My father's eyes darted toward the new figure, a mixture of fear and hesitance swirling within them, while the dark silhouette remained eerily composed, as if summoning memories from the depths of my father's soul. "Dad, who is he?" I pressed, my voice barely breaking through the tension that hung over us like a shroud. "Not now," he began, but my heart was too far gone to submit to the need for restraint. The chatter of the party faded into a dull roar, leaving just the three of us encased in an agonizing silence. "He's the reason you've always kept your distance from me," I blurted out, a reckless edge gripping my words. "The reason you've never talked about your past. Isn't that why you've been so haunted?" The stranger's grin morphed into a smirk, basking in the drama unfolding before him. "Look at her, pretending to understand. She has no idea what real darkness is, James. Protecting her may have cost more than you realized." From the corner, Emila's hand found mine, grounding me, reminding me of the bond we shared through every trembling heartbeat. I glanced at her, finding the comfort I needed even in the eye of the looming storm. "We can face it together," I reminded myself as much as her. "Everything I did it to keep you safe." My father's protest cut through the thick air, but the stranger interrupted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "And that's always been the problem, hasn't it? Your misguided attempts at protection. What you thought was shielding her has instead wrapped her in chains of your making." My heart sank. He was right. The truth felt like a tightly held fist pressed against my chest. "Please, Dad," I urged, fervently willing him to open that door head guarded so ferociously. "What could he possibly know that I don't? It's not just my past that threatens you," he murmured, finally meeting my gaze with a vulnerability that tore deeper at my heart. "It's the past that has claws dug into your future too." "Then tell me," I whispered, the knot of fear and anticipation tightening within me. I could feel the fight draining from my father as he stood frozen, the weight of his burden threatening to claim him. As if sensing the moment, the cloaked figure stepped closer, invading our space, his presence looming large. "You see, the truth is terrible and beautiful," he declared, his voice echoing in the silence. "And it can't wait any longer. You should know that your father has made choices that reverberate through time." With each word, I felt knots twisting in my stomach. The stranger had an unsettling way of speaking, as if coaxing haunting memories back to life. "What choices?" I demanded. "What did you do to him?" My father flinched at my question, as if I were striking at a wound he sought to keep hidden. But the stranger's eyes lit up with a cruel delight. "The truth is," he began, savoring the moment, "James was a soldier, but the battles he fought weren't merely on the front lines. He fought the ones within himself, the ones that challenged his very essence, and in that struggle he lost." "Stop it!" I shouted, desperate to push back the tide of revelation crashing around me. "You don't own this story," but the stranger laughed, creating a cold void that filled the space with despair. "Oh, but I do. And it's time someone took the blindfold off. If you want the truth of your father's heart, you're going to have to grapple with the reality of his past. This would not end well." A fury rumbled inside me, anger at the stranger's cruelty, anger at my father for his silence, but mostly, anger at the chains of the past that seemed insurmountable. "Will you tell her, James?" The stranger pressed, his voice laced with malice. "Or shall I?" I looked into my father's eyes, searching for the flicker of hope I had seen before. "Don't give in to him, Dad. I'm right here, please just share it. We can face whatever it is together." In that moment, the air grew dense with a harrowing tension, each second stretching painfully long. My father opened his mouth, uncertainty etched deep into his brow, but words got trapped in his throat. Just as the storm of emotions threatened to consume us, something hidden stirred behind me, a shadow moving among the revelers, unnoticed by everyone else. That I turned instinctively, adrenaline coursing through my veins, and gasped. There, standing silently apart from the chaos, was a woman whose presence somehow felt familiar, yet haunting. The way her gaze was fixated on my father sent chills racing down my spine. "Mom?" I whispered, disbelief mingling with a tidal wave of hope. My father's reaction was instantaneous, his face blanched even further, fear radiating from him as if she were a ghost resurfacing from a nightmare long buried. "No, it can't be," he breathed, the finality in his tone sending shockwaves through me. The stranger laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the night. "Ah, but that's the beauty of truth, it usually comes back to haunt you," and in that moment, I realized that this night, filled with revelations and shadows of the past, was far from over. It was merely the prelude to something even deeper, a catastrophe waiting to be unearthed. Would my family's pieces fit back together, or would we be shattered beneath the weight of choices made long ago? The truth loomed, pulsating in the air, and I was left standing before it, bracing myself for the impact. Everything swirled for a moment, the party fading into an indistinct hum. My heart thudded heavily in my chest as the weight of my mother's unexpected presence loomed. She wasn't just a ghost from the past anymore, she was flesh and blood, a link connecting the fragmented pieces of our family, and the paper-thin shield between us and our painful truths began to unravel. "Mom?" I barely managed to breathe, the sound barely strong enough to cross the threshold of disbelief. I searched my mother's face for the familiar lines of love and warmth that had, until now, been merely a fond memory etched in my mind. She stood there, a haunting reflection of a time before fear buried her in shadows. "Sweetheart." Her voice trembled, each word floating into the air like a fragile feather caught in a storm. My father's features twisted into a mixture of anguish and unresolved chaos. The moment was suspended, aquatic and eerie, as I wrestled with the reality standing between us. You came back?" My voice cracked, unprepared for the flood of emotions unfurling. I glanced back at my father, where turmoil stirred deep in his dark eyes, a well of emotions he had hidden for too long. "What is happening? Tell me, please." I was exhausted with the burden of their silence, no longer wanting to navigate the chasms they chose to maintain. "It's complicated," my mother whispered, her gaze drifting toward my father. Shadows danced around them, people fading into the corners of my vision as I felt like we were the only three creatures left in this world. "Complicated?" I echoed, the familiar ache of anger pricking my skin. "Your secrets have only made things more chaotic. How is it that you think I can navigate my own life without understanding yours?" My heart raced, the taunting laugh of the stranger still echoing in my mind. "You both owe me this truth, after everything." The air stilled as the tension mounted, clinging like heavy fog that threatened to choke us. Seemingly weighed down by years of choices, my father's shoulders sagged, the lines of his face deepening, a worn compass stuck in a storm. "You deserve a life free from the burdens we carried," he finally declared, his voice trembling but resolute. "That's why I kept you hidden from it all." "Hidden?" I replied, unable to suppress the rising anger. "What kind of life is that? To live in a world of secrets, of shadows? Don't you see? You've both made me a prisoner of your choices." Before I could gauge my father's reaction, the stranger stepped forward, drawn to the spectacle of our emotional confrontation. "How naive," he sneered. "She speaks of freedom, but there's no escape from blood ties. You're tangled in their web, you always have been. No. I roared, but as the familiar fear pricked at my heart, I wrestled against the oppressive grip of uncertainty. My mother's gaze softened, empathy spilling from her eyes as she stepped closer. "Your father loved us both, but the darkness is something that haunts him still. We must break the cycle." "Break the cycle?" I took a shaky breath, the resolve rising in me. "Then let's face whatever nightmare you both have bottled up. I refuse to cower in the dark because of history. I am tired of looking over my shoulder, of feeling dread seep into my bones. You need to tell me the truth." My father's gaze lifted, the shadows of past decisions swirling behind his resolute facade. Slowly, the walls he had built began to crumble. "You are my light, and I only hope to shield you, but maybe it's time I share the darkness as well." "Then do it," I exclaimed, desperation and anger tangled, pushing him beyond the brink. "Tell me everything, Please, his breath hitched before he continued, the weight of years pressing down. After my service, there were shadows, things I can't easily explain. Choices I made, people I couldn't save, the burden of regret etched into my very core. But why does that mean you had to leave us? I pressed, my heart aching for clarity. If you truly love us, you should invite us into your world, no matter how strained it might be. He faltered, glancing fleetingly at my mother. Because I was afraid they would come. For you too. My mom's eyes glistened with tears, and in that moment, I understood the fragility of our existence intertwined with their hidden lives. Fear should bond us, not divide us. The past can't be rewritten, but together, we can weave a new story, she urged, her voice breaking just enough for me to recognize the strength within her vulnerability, and for the first time, in the middle of this storm, I felt a shift. My heart swelled with a blend of hope and sorrow. The past engraved into my father could evolve, it didn't have to define what lay ahead. This stranger, this embodiment of our fears, could no longer dictate our direction. What are you? I breathed deeply, drawing strength from the connection forming between us. Are you the ghost of my parents' past, or are you merely a puppet of their regrets made flesh? He faltered, the anger dissipating like smoke fading into the night. You think you can save them? His laughter rang hollow against my conviction. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. The past never truly leaves you. Then we'll face it together, I shot back defiantly. It was time to shatter the shackles once and for all. My friends stood behind me, a bulwark against the encroaching darkness, their unwavering support lending me courage. Break this cycle of fear, Dad, I urged, looking into his beautiful, deep eyes. Let's write our own story. It can be messy, but we can heal together. A flicker of light ignited in my father's gaze. You are right, it's time to confront it and reclaim our power. I felt the darkness beginning to lift, slowly revealing a path forged by love rather than fear. It was time to make amends and rekindle old bonds. When the past collided with our present, unity broke through despair, and in the distance, the stranger began to fade, his focus slipping as our truth illuminated the path before us. Together, as a family, we would face it all. No more shadows. No more secrets. A new chapter awaited us, promising resilience rooted in acceptance, and as my father held my hand, tightened by the bonds of newfound hope, I realized that the real strength grew from love, not fear. In that moment, a profound truth settled within me: the past is only the beginning, it doesn't have to be the end. And with that knowledge wrapped around us like an impenetrable armor, ended the echoes of our hidden battles, forever interwoven in the light of our shared future.